What we want to do now is to actually output this drawing to either a file or to paper print. So we've been working currently in what's called model space. This is your working environment. It can be as untidy as you wish. The general rule is that everything in model space should be life size. So we were drawing this in millimeters. The overall size of that column is about 1.5 meters. It's big. We don't draw anything to scale in model space. The scale is dealt with in paper space. Now, my screen's a bit small here, so I can't see any of the layouts. So there should be one, but it's not showing any. So I'm going to click this new layout button, and that should take me to paper space. Now my screen's so compressed I can't see any of that. This is a wee bit tricky actually, so that's better. The arrow's working now, that's what it should have done. It's cascaded off the screen. I'm going to choose layout 1. You can't see that. What I'll do is I'll temporarily move AutoCAD upwards a bit so you can see that cascade. Okay, so we were in model space, we're going to go to layout 1. Okay, we're in layout 1 now. I'll bring this back down. Okay, so the software has basically partially set up a layout for me. It's chosen a piece of paper, I don't know what size that is, and it's also created an object on top of the piece of paper called a viewport. If I click just here, you can see that it's showing that object is a viewport on layer arm. So let's deal with a piece of paper first. Now, what I want to do is print this to an A3 piece of paper. I don't have a physical A3 printer in this workplace that I'm in, but I can produce a PDF. So let's look at the setup for layout 1. If you right click the tab layout 1, then go to page setup manager, and then go to modify. Okay, this looks fairly complicated, but it's fairly straightforward. First thing to do is to choose a device or a print type that you want to create. Okay, this is the actual printer I have, a Samsung color laser, but it's only A4. So to get an A3 layout from here, what I'll need to use is the DWG to PDF. So that will create a PDF file that I could send to somebody else. So that's my printer of choice. Paper size, as I said, I want to use A3, so I'm looking for ISO A3. ISO A3. It's showing up landscape, which is fine. The plot area is going to be the layout. That's usually the case. No need to change any of these offsets. The plot scale, this is really to do with the paper size. So if you want that size of paper, this has to stay at 1:1. Okay, this is the bit that catches most people out. They think they need to enter some kind of architectural scale here, or they don't check that it actually reads 1:1. Okay, the next tricky piece of information to put in is what's called the plot style table. Now what this does, it transforms the colors on screen through to black pens on your print. We wouldn't want the printout to show up with green lines and pink lines. It would look ridiculous. It's got to be black lines, and ideally there'll be some differences in line weight that help clarify the information. They give it a hierarchy of information. What I'll do is I'll show you how you change the AutoCAD standard plot style table to one that's got a bit of control. So drop the little arrow down and let's go with AutoCAD, and then we'll edit that. So you only need to do this once. Okay, now the first 9 colors Red's already selected. If I hold shift and click 9, I want to use these as black pens. So instead of use object color, change that to black. Okay, what I'm going to do is make every pen, all 255 possible pens, I'm going to make them all have a line weight of 0.1 millimeters. So where you see line weight, change it to 0.1. Okay, now let's be a bit more specific with those first 9 pens to introduce a bit of variation. So yellow, so there's a logic here. The brighter the colour on screen, the thicker the pen should be. Okay, so let's go for yellow, and we'll make this one a bit thicker than the standard 0.1. So let's make this 0.25. Now let's go for colour 7. Colour 7 is black, but it's also white. They interchange depending on whether you're in your layout or model, in your paper space or model space. So colour 7, this is going to be fairly thick. Let's make this 0.45. And the final one, I want a very thick line for the column. So I'm going to use magenta. It's going to have a pen weight of 0.7. Okay, so I've got a hierarchy now from quite a lot of thin pens getting thicker, thicker, thickest. Okay, I'm going to save that. So save as, so I've created my own custom pen style table. And let's just call this Truss for the sake of this particular exercise. I'm going to call it Truss CTB. So this drawing can be matched to a specific output, to a specific way of looking at the drawing. So Truss CTB, save and close, and then we need to find Truss CTB. There it is at the bottom of the list, ready to use. Okay, I don't need to change anything else here. Click OK. Now close. Now things look a little bit different. It's now using an A3 piece of paper. The viewport here, what we can do is enlarge this so it fits the printable area. Now I've got my object snaps and ortho on. Adjusting a viewport with those on is quite tricky, so I'll turn them both off. Okay, so I'm dragging the viewport to fit the printable area that's inside the dashed lines. Okay, then press escape. So I've adjusted the viewport. Now what I want to do is adjust what's inside the viewport. And to do that, I can either double click inside the viewport, or I can click the paper button here. Okay, it's kind of a toggle button. Usually we would double click inside. Okay, I'm going to click and hold my middle mouse button to center the contents, and then I'm going to experiment with a scale. And as expected, the bit of the screen I need to get to is hidden just outside this view. I don't know if this can be adjusted, its position. I thought it could be parked on the side. Maybe this one can't. But what I'll need to do is just push AutoCAD to the side a bit so I can lengthen the work area. Right, so we're missing a wee bit of what's happening over here, but it should be okay to see what's going on. This is what I was trying to reveal, this little feature here, and this is the zoom setting for that viewport. If I can get that to a nice round number, then we're looking more at an architectural or an engineering drawing scale. So let's see what's on the list. Okay, they're expressing them as kind of ratios and as percentages. 1 to 1 obviously being 100%. So let's see what a 1 to 50 looks like. Way too small. I want my truss to be nice and clear. So let's try a different scale. How about 1 to 10? Perfect. Fits nicely on the A3. If I was needing a larger scale, say 1 to 5, then I would need bigger paper. Okay, so I would change my layout accordingly. Go to an A2 piece of paper or an A1. Okay, but things are looking good as they are. I'll put the screen back. We've finished with this feature just now, so I'm just going to stretch AutoCAD back so we can see what's happening in the command prompt. Let's see what the drawing looks like at the moment. I'm going to double click outside to basically seal the viewport, to secure it. If I double click here, okay, if I right click layout 1, I can see the plot command here. It's also up here on the printer. So I go to plot and preview. Always preview your prints. Okay, it's looking interesting. Now, having a box around the drawing for an architect isn't good form. We prefer to see the white paper kind of flow in and around the space. Boxing things in does look a bit simplistic. These construction lines also looking a bit strange. Notice the dashes are a bit bigger than they were in model space. Let's zoom in and see what we can see. As I get closer, we can start to see the hierarchy in the lines. The green lines have become 0.1mm thick black lines, but the pink lines are much darker. The CTB file is converting green to 0.1 and it's converting pink to 0.7. So the drawing has much more emphasis. It looks much more professional. So there's a bit of work to do here. I want the viewport to be usable but not to end up on the print, and I want my construction lines hidden completely. So I'll escape the print preview, just press escape and cancel. What we need is a layer to house the viewport, and we can make that layer non-printing. Go to your layer properties, create a new layer. I'm going to call it viewports. Give it a color that you don't use for anything else, maybe something pinky or purple down at this end. And another feature of that layer is that they don't want it to print. So if I click on the little printer here, a little no entry sign goes onto it, meaning that won't print. Okay, close the viewport, close the layers dialog. Now click on the viewport and put it onto layer viewports and escape. In this particular viewport, I don't want the construction lines to be seen. Just for your information, going from model space to paper space, it changes, the line type scale needs to be adjusted. So if it's a large number in model space, it tends to be a much smaller number in paper space. So if I do that LTS command again, line type scale, and I'll make it 0.5, you can see that it looks now the same as it did before. It's a tenth of what it was in model space. So there is a relationship between the viewport scale and the line type scale, but it doesn't automatically set it for you. It's one of the more annoying aspects of the software. Okay, in this viewport though, I want the construction lines hidden. So if I double click inside the viewport drop the layers list down, and I'll select the third icon along. You can see it's called Freeze in Current Viewport. So it's not freezing it or turning it off in the whole drawing, it's just in that viewport. Let me prove that to you. If I double click back in the grey here, go back to model space, the construction lines are still visible. Go back to layout 1, they're hidden, but only in this viewport. Let's try the print preview again. We right click layout 1, plot, and preview. That looks tidier. We've not got the box around the drawing, it's just an elegant shape sitting there on the piece of paper. Okay, press escape and cancel. The final thing I want to do is just add a title to it. Everything needs its own controlling layers because we need to be able to adjust the line weight. So let's create a new layer for our text. Let's keep things simple and just call it text. I always do that, call it test. Okay, text, and choose a color for the layer, and I'm going to choose color white so that it shows up black in paper space. And watch out, the last layer created, its properties get copied to the newest layer. So turn off the printer icon or we'll not see these on the printout. Make it current, close the dialog box, and we want to use some text, but we haven't chosen a style for the text. We haven't actually told it what typeface we want to use. So you use this command called style for that. Okay, I'm not sure, no, it's not there. Right, so what we'll do is style, it shortens to ST, and there it is there, style. Okay, let's create a new style, and we'll call this titles. Let's use a typeface that hasn't been used yet. Let's go for Verdana. Okay, it's a fairly standard typeface in Windows systems. Style, let's have it bold. Don't set a height for your text because this makes it kind of locked to that specific height. Better to leave it as it is. If you want to squeeze the text up a bit and make it look a bit more elegant, you can put a bit of reduce the width factor. So let's go to 0.85. Starts to look a bit more interesting. Okay, we set current and close. Now the text command that's being offered here is multi-line text. I don't need multi-line text for general annotation. Dynamic text, or they're calling it single line text here, will be suffice. Okay, so single line. It's asking me where I want to start the piece of text. Specify the start point. Okay, so I pick a position. It's asking me now how high do I want the text. That's in millimeters, 2.5 millimeters. So that's a bit small for a title. So let's go for, say, 5 millimeters for the main title. Do I want to rotate the text, maybe to align with something on screen? You just drag to match the angles of objects that you've got on screen. Okay, if you press enter, it will just do it horizontally to the right. Okay, now it's expecting me to type. See a cursor flashing. Okay, and this is, we'll call this Truss detail. Press the enter key and it behaves like a keyboard. It will go down onto the next line. And this is financial times printworks. Press return twice and it finishes the command. Okay, I'll get in a bit closer so I can see what I've written. That was a fairly arbitrary position for the text, so I'd probably want to move it. So we click Move, pick the two pieces of text at the same time, press Enter. I'm looking for a base point, but this can be anywhere. If I can see the objects and I've got space to move it, your base point can be anywhere. Okay, I'll tuck that into the corner. That's fine. When you're in paper space, Zoom Extents, the double clicking of the middle mouse button, would actually fit the screen to the viewport. Let's see that. Okay, I can't actually see the whole piece of paper. So what I need to do in paper space is use Zoom All. And to do that, type in Z, return, and there you can see the A option. So either click the A or type in A and return. And then you can see the full piece of paper. Okay, let's do a final plot preview just to make sure everything's looking the way we want. Looking tidy, and this time we right click and we'll let it go. So this will generate a PDF, and let's just drop that on the desktop, and here's my PDF. Okay, looks a bit strange the way it's being viewed here. If I want to get in maybe 200%, let's see if I can see the actual drawing. It's down a bit. There we go. So it's got nice sharp vectors in the PDF, and when you create them in AutoCAD you actually get control over the layers. So it's quite neat. You can, people can understand your drawings if everything's organized by layers. Okay. So that's basically the truss drawn and outputted using AutoCAD 2015, and I hope that's been useful. Goodbye.